Hey gang, hope everybody's doing good out there today. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in, much appreciated. And today I'm going to give you guys a really good basic jig 101 seminar on the 4 basic type of jigs that there are out there. I mean, there are some other modifications, variations, but I'm going to go over what I consider the 4 basic jig categories and sort of break it down, for you guys that are just getting started in jig fishing as far as, when to fish these particular models under what conditions. So anyway, before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping tips. Just wanted to remind everybody, give my weekly reminder that if you guys are interested in some of our Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns, we're doing lakes all across the country, personal lake map breakdowns, getting ready to start on our fall maps. We still got maps of all 4 seasons. You can check out the complete catalog at fishthemoment.com, and you can place an order for a personal breakdown too. So a lot of good stuff over at fishthemoment.com in addition to the maps. Go over and check that out. And just wanted to give you guys my weekly reminder on memberships for my channel. If you guys like what I'm doing here on the channel and you'd like to go further and support the channel, help support it more, you can become a member of the channel. You get additional videos every week that aren't seen by the public, access to my personal email for your fishing questions with some memberships. And like I said, it's a great way to help out the channel if you like doing that. So just wanted to tidy that up here before we get started. Okay, let's get started here on the 4 basic categories here. And guys, I love fishing jigs, man. Jigs are, excuse me, jigs are without a doubt, I'm going to put them in the top 3 as far as catching quality bass. I mean, there's just very few lure categories that can compete with a jig, any jig category that catches just an above average grade of fish. And that's why I like to fish them a lot. It's a great tournament type bait. So let's go over the 4 different ones here. I'm gonna start out here. First one I want to start out with is the one that I probably use more than anything else, and this is a pitching and flipping jig. Now, a pitching and flipping jig is designed for that. It's designed to fish in and around heavy cover. Anytime you're flipping, grass, wood, bushes, docks, places that you put a jig in that require a little bit extra of heavy dutiness to get those fish out, more power, this is when you're using the pitching and flipping jig. And the difference, or the main characteristic of a pitching and flipping jig, is you've got a stiff hook, a larger diameter stiff hook that doesn't flex much at all, that can handle the penetration if you set the hook with a flipping stick on 25 or 30 pound line. It's got a good stiff weed guard in it. It usually has a turned eye like that. I prefer a turned eye because I think it gives you not only a better hooking ratio, but also it comes through the cover good. And then it has a good head design that's sort of a combination of a head that allows you to get through heavy cover and also through rocks and that type of stuff. So pitching and flipping jig is definitely one that I use probably as much or more than anything. Okay, the next one we'll talk about here is another jig. This is probably the second one I use as much, and that's what I call a finesse jig. Finesse jigs are probably the most heavily used jig in the country because they simply get more bites because they're smaller. A larger jig, you're going to sacrifice the number of bites you get for the quality, but a finesse jig is sort of a bait that's the best of 2 worlds. You get a lot of bites on it and it still catches quality fish. The characteristic of a finesse jig is normally it has a ball head on it like this. And the ball head, it's a good, excuse me guys, it's a good head for fishing in a variety of different cover. It comes through rock good, it still comes through brush pretty good, and it's a good bait to fish around docks, and that's where I like to fish a finesse jig a lot. Also, a finesse jig, a lot of time, it's hand tied here, as you can see with the wire here. Usually the skirt on it sometimes is sort of flared out on the head like that. It's tied a little bit different than the flipping jig, as you can see. And also normally you have a variety of different hook diameters. For the most part, a finesse jig has got a little bit smaller wire. This is actually here, this is sort of a heavy cover finesse jig. A lot of the other finesse jigs have smaller hooks, even like down to 2/0 hooks. So there's a variety of different sizes of finesse jig based upon if you're really finessey, like you want to use a little bitty tiny trailer, 10-pound test line, or if you want like a heavier cover finesse jig like this. But basically, it's just a same type of jig, it's just more of a diminutive profile. Next one let's talk about, it's the football head jig. Football head jig is designed basically for fishing, for fishing offshore structures. Drop-offs, you know, brush piles deeper, that type of stuff, ledges, that type of deal. If you guys, you know, watch Fish the Moment much, you know Johnny is a huge football head fan. He's got his own jig with Jewel Bait Company. It's called the Fish the Moment Offshore Jig. And you can refer to some of Johnny's videos, fishthemoment.com, for some great football head tips. But a football head jig, it's designed just like it says. It's got a head on it that looks like a football head. And this jig design comes through rocks really good. And snaggy type rocks that normally other type of heads like the ball head catch up on. The football head jig comes through the rocks really good. Also, normally when you're using a football head jig, you're using a heavier jig, like a 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce jig, which allows you to cover a lot of water, a lot of deep water in a hurry. And that's the thing that makes the football head jig efficient, is how much deep water that you can cover in a hurry. Because a lot of times if you're using other type of jigs, it takes a long time for it to get down there, and when they hit the bottom, they don't set up the right. But the football head jig just really digs that bottom, stays on the bottom, works really good in the deeper water. Okay, and the fourth one I'll talk about is a swim jig. Now the swim jig has gained a lot of fame lately. A lot of guys have done well in tournaments on it. The difference on a swim jig is the head design. It's got more of an inline head design. This head design like this is designed to come through like shallow grass, aquatic vegetation, you know, water willows, that type of stuff, even submergent grass like that. So the design on the swim jig head is it's to be fished through heavy cover, not worked like a regular jig, but basically you're swimming this jig just like a crankbait almost through the heavier cover. And the hook variations, normally it has a little bit lighter wire hook on there, you know, depending upon the type of trailer you're using, comes in a variety of different sizes based upon, you know, how thick the cover is and how deep the water is. But a swim jig is actually, it's almost like fishing a spinnerbait or crankbait instead of working it like a jig, but it is classified as a jig. Now there's other jig types out there, like you've got the bladed jigs, you know, like the chatterbaits. I really don't consider a chatterbait a jig. I consider it more of like a hybrid crankbait jig. So I'm not going to put that in that category out there. Then you have some other type of jigs like mop jigs. You got casting jigs, different variations. But guys, I'm telling you right now, these four that I'm going to show you right here, if you have these four and learn how to use them in different situations, it's going to cover most all the needs. You've got the finesse jig, football head jig, swim jig, and the pitching and flipping jig. These four jig categories right here, there's very few situations that you're going to come up in jig fishing that it's not going to take care of that. So anyway, guys, that's just a basic 101 jig design profile type. We're going to do a bunch of info on jigs moving forward here. There's a lot to cover on them, a lot of detail to jigs. This is just one aspect of it. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't had a chance to, and we'll talk to y'all later.